Everyone in the mountain town could carve stone. It was not a special skill there. It was simply what people did, the way people near water learn to swim and people near forests learn to read weather. Children learned it before they learned to read. Old people died with dust still in the creases of their hands. Stone was the language of that place, and most people spoke it fluently enough. But Mira carved something no one else did. She carved the shadows between things. Not the things themselves, not the figure, not the face, not the flower or the bird or the column. She carved the negative space, the hollow where two arms almost touched but didn't, the gap beneath the chin, the dark between a branch and its shadow on the ground. She carved what was not there and left the surrounding stone intact, so that what you saw when you looked at her work was not a thing but the shape of its absence. Most people found it unsettling. "I don't understand what I'm looking at," was the most common response. "Yes," Mira always said. That is the correct response. She was not young. She had worked this way for 20 years and had spent the 20 before that carving in the conventional way. Figures and forms, things with names and edges, things you could point to and identify. She had been good at it. Technically excellent, her teachers had said. Precise, reliable, and completely uninterested in her own work. The change had come on an ordinary afternoon when she was 31, sitting in the square after finishing a commission. A memorial for a man she had not known, carved entirely from the description his family gave her. It was a fine piece, accurate to the description. It looked like the man, they said. And as she sat looking at it, she felt the particular disappointment of something correct that is not true. She watched the shadow the statue cast on the ground, watched it move as the afternoon moved, and understood, for the first time, that the shadow was more alive than the stone. She went home and began a new kind of work. A young sculptor from the lowlands came to study with her the following spring. He had trained in the classical tradition, beautiful, confident, technically accomplished. He stood before her work for a long time before he spoke. "I don't know how to look at it," he said. "That is where looking actually begins," she said. He spent a month in her studio before she gave him a tool and a piece of stone. When she did, she gave him an instruction he did not understand. "Find the most important thing in this stone," she said. He worked for 3 days. He carved a figure, a person kneeling, head bowed, hands open. It was excellent work. She looked at it carefully and said nothing for a long while. "What is the most important thing in this piece?" she asked. He pointed to the figure. She shook her head gently. She pointed to the space between the open hands, a hollow, an emptiness shaped by the position of the palms. "This," she said, "this is what the hands are making, not the gesture, the space the gesture creates." She looked at him. What a person holds is sometimes less important than what they have made room for. He stood with that for the rest of the day. He stood with it, in truth, for the rest of his life, through years of his own work, through the pieces he became known for, through the long apprenticeships he himself eventually led. He always began his students with the same stone, the same tool, and the same question. And the answer, when they finally found it, was never the thing. It was always the space the thing made possible. What we create matters, but the emptiness we make room for may matter more.